The brutality of this case is absolutely appalling. And it's no wonder why this remains one of Hollywood's most infamous and unsolved cases to this very day. This is the case of Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia. On January 15, 1947, Elizabeth Short was found dead in Leimert Park in Los Angeles, not far from the busy intersection of 39th Place and 4th Street. Someone had cut her body into two pieces, and she was still missing her head and both of her arms. The first officer to arrive on the scene described it as the most horrible thing he had ever seen. It was apparent that Elizabeth had been posed with surgical precision. Her torso was lying face down with her legs open and her arms neatly placed beside her, almost as if someone was inviting the police to come and find the rest of her. They would later find her severed head about 150 feet away from her torso. One side of her mouth was pulled back as if she were screaming and her eyes were staring blankly upward. Whoever had done this had done so with a skill that could only be described as macabre artistry. But who was Elizabeth Short? She had moved to Los Angeles from Massachusetts in 1946, just 23 years old, hoping to become an actress. She had attended several parties with some pretty high-profile people. In fact, her killer would later send letters to some of these parties claiming that he had more pictures of them at those parties with Short. Sadly, none of these letters would ever make it to the intended recipients, and they would never be found until after the statute of limitations had run out. That means that to this very day, we don't know what exactly Short got up to during her short time in LA, or if she was involved in any kind of dangerous activities. Despite her rather short stay in LA, Short had made enough of an impression for rumors to swirl about who could have wanted her dead. There was talk that she may have been a call girl, but the police were unable to substantiate these claims. What we do know is that she got pregnant at some point, but that her pregnancy was terminated at Massachusetts General Hospital. Given that her killer would later claim that he had killed her because she was a promiscuous, sexually liberated woman, it seems likely that Short had been engaging in activities that were taboo for women at the time. Short's body had been on display for several days before it was found, so when it was discovered, the media frenzy that followed was intense. Newspapers across the country ran the story, which only grew with each new update. People were fascinated by the brutality of the crime, and the police were under immense pressure to catch whoever was responsible. Over 5,000 people came forward with tips, and 150 men were questioned, but nobody was ever convicted for Short's murder. One man who came forward was Mark Hansen. He confessed to the crime, but was deemed mentally unstable and unable to stand trial. Years later, he would recant his confession. Another suspect was Dr. George Hill Hodel. He was a physician and also the father of a famous child star. Some believe that he was trying to cover up his daughter's involvement with Short. But as with Hansen, there was no concrete evidence to link him to the crime, and he was never charged. There have been many other suspects over the years, but none have stuck. The case remains open, and Short's murder remains one of the most infamous unsolved cases in history. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, where I will be covering many more stories of crime.